aims to fix that. Hosted by Walter Thompson Hernandez, Written Off shines a light on young writers who found their voice inside the U.S. prison system. Each episode features notable creatives like John Legend, Issa Rae, Jay Ellis, Keke Palmer, and Julio Torres, and many more reading their work. Listen to Written Off now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Happening now, President Biden issues an urgent plea to the unvaccinated to get their shots as he faces a new COVID emergency and prepares to order a vaccine mandate for federal workers. Also tonight, after giving emotional testimony, officers attacked by Capitol rioters say they feel abandoned by the National Police Union. I'll talk with a key member of the January 6th committee, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, in his first one-on-one interview since the hearing. And after weeks of frustration and wrangling, bipartisan Senate negotiators strike a new deal on infrastructure. We're standing by for a critical test vote expected this hour. We want to welcome our viewers here in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room. We begin with the president and the pandemic. Let's go straight to our chief White House correspondent, Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, as COVID-19 surges among the unvaccinated here in the United States, the Biden administration is getting more aggressive in its response.
Yeah, Wolf, it's a noticeable shift in tone here at the White House, not just when it comes to vaccine policy, an update that we are expecting from President Biden tomorrow, but also when it comes to the messaging. And you could hear him tonight pointing the blame for what is happening across the national landscape right now on the unvaccinated. President Biden frustrated by the numbers tonight.
We still have a lot of people not vaccinated.
With the formidable Delta variant fueling new outbreaks, over half the country remains unvaccinated, and Biden is zeroing in on those who haven't gotten the shot.
The pandemic we have now is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. So please, if you're not vaccinated, protect yourself and the children out there.
The president was in Pennsylvania to build support for his domestic agenda, but the Delta surge remained in the spotlight after he was introduced by someone whose mother died from COVID-19.
Carlo, I'm sorry about your mom. I really am. So many people.
Tomorrow, Biden is expected to announce that all federal employees must get vaccinated or submit to regular testing and other mitigation measures if they don't.
While no decision has been finalized, I will say that the attestation of vaccination for federal employees is one option under strong consideration.
Requiring federal employees to get vaccinated would be a massive shift in the White House's approach and comes after top health officials reversed course by issuing new mask guidance for the fully vaccinated.
We put this guidance out because the science demonstrates that if you are vaccinated, you could potentially give disease to someone else.
The experts say those who are unvaccinated are overwhelmingly spreading the virus as they become more blunt about who's to blame for the current national dilemma.
We have 100 million people in this country who are eligible to be vaccinated who have not gotten vaccinated.
Hospitalizations have been increasing for the last month and went up 35% over the last week. Almost daily, there are new reports of those who regret not getting vaccinated.
I never really realized how bad it could be and how bad this Delta variant could be.
But not everyone is heeding the new warnings.
Stop being wimps in this country. Teaching our children to be cowards.
A Broward School board meeting on mask requirements for the upcoming year was disrupted this week by mask-burning protesters.
Here are the masks that have been enslaving our children.
In Arkansas, where a statewide ban on mask mandates goes into effect this week, Governor Asa Hutchinson was shouted down after he attempted to dispute false claims about the vaccine.
Does this impact fertility? Well, the answer is no, and that's been the data, but
So at this point in time, there is no evidence that the COVID...
1,000 women you shut down from telling their stories.
Remarkable moments, Wolf, playing out across the nation. And we should also note that tonight the CDC has quietly updated its testing guidance for those who are fully vaccinated. That's in addition to updating its masking guidance yesterday. And now they say even if you are fully vaccinated, if you come into contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID-19, you should wait 3 to 5 days after exposure and then get tested. Wear a mask until you get a negative test. Well, and that's notable because before the guidance was even if you're fully vaccinated, if you come into contact with someone, you don't need to get tested unless you're symptomatic. So another change here tonight, Wolf.
Yeah, lots of changes unfolding right now. Caitlin, thank you very much. Caitlin Collins at the White House. Let's bring in our experts. Joining us now, our chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and Dr. Paul Offit. He's a member of the FDA Vaccines Advisory Board and director of vaccine education, the Vaccine Education Center at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Sanjay, the U.S. is now averaging more than 61,000 new COVID-19 cases every day. A month ago, we were seeing just 11,000 new COVID-19 cases a day. Can you put this into perspective for us? How bad is this getting?
Well, I mean, I'll preface by saying this is supposed to be one of the better times of year, the summer, when the virus doesn't transmit as much. So you just said the numbers in terms of cases, they've gone up nearly fivefold. But if you look at the map, Wolf, that means, 2/3 of the country are now in areas where you have either a high or substantial viral transmission. In addition to the cases going up, hospitalizations have increased 35% over the past week. Sadly, deaths have increased 22% over the last week. So all of those numbers going in the wrong direction. Vaccinations overall, thankfully, at least over the past few days, have increased a bit. So there are more people who are getting vaccinated now than at this time last week. But we'll keep an eye on that number, Wolf. But overall, the case and hospitalization and deaths numbers not going in the right direction.
Certainly not. Dr. Offit, President Biden expected to announce a vaccine mandate for federal workers tomorrow. Should more vaccine mandates follow?
Yes, I think we're there. I think we've done everything we could in terms of educating people about the importance of this vaccine. It's free, it's readily available. We've tried to decrease misinformation. We've had incentives, and we've hit a wall. I mean, there was a time we were giving 3 million doses a day. If we'd stayed that course, we could be at roughly 80% population immunity, but we didn't. And as a consequence, we have an under-vaccinated population that's allowing this virus to spread, and I think we've gotten to the point where you have to compel people to do the right thing. It's sad, we shouldn't have to do that, but I think that's where we are.
The CDC, Sanjay, now says vaccinated people in areas with so-called high COVID-19 transmission should resume wearing masks, especially, obviously, when they're indoors with strangers, lots of people. Do you think this new guidance may actually be causing more confusion, though?
I think it is confusing a bit, Wolf. I mean, just talking to lots of people over the past couple of days. I also spoke to Dr. Walensky. The fundamental problem, as Dr. Offit just said, is unvaccinated people primarily spreading the virus to other unvaccinated people. That is the primary problem. You look at places where you have high viral transmission, almost assuredly you're going to find lower vaccination rates there. The new science that Dr. Walensky talks about is the fact that someone who has been vaccinated and develops what are these so-called breakthrough infections could have enough virus in their nose and mouth to then spread it to somebody else. So that if you're vaccinated, maybe you thought, hey, look, I'm totally free and clear. I can spend time with someone who's unvaccinated, no problem. I think that's where this may help a bit. If you're going to spend time with a vulnerable elderly loved one, someone who is at risk, for example, you don't want to spread the virus to that person. So vaccinated people should wear masks, in public indoor spaces. But how much of a difference does that make on that map that you just showed? I don't know, because what's driving red and orange on that map seems to be unvaccinated to unvaccinated primarily.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sanjay, I know you have a question for Dr. Offit. Go ahead.
Well, Dr. Offit, I'm just curious, now when you look at it, and hindsight's always 20/20, right, sir? But back on May 13th, they changed the mask guidance for vaccinated individuals, saying they no longer needed to wear them indoors. Now it feels like a step backwards. What do you think about that May 13th decision to lift mask recommendations at that time for the vaccinated?
I think what was behind that decision was basically a gift. If you've been vaccinated, you can now take off that mask. And it trusted the fact, and I think it was too much trust, that therefore if you walked into a grocery store, everybody who would be wearing a mask was unvaccinated, everybody who wasn't wearing a mask was vaccinated. That obviously was wrong. There are a lot of people who aren't vaccinated who also choose not to wear a mask, and I think it was a little short-sighted. And so it looks like a step back, but I think, between the Delta variant being as contagious as it is and having just a disappointing uptake of this vaccine, what they're doing now is the correct thing to do.
Sanjay, take a look at this graphic. The U.S. remains stuck with just about 49.3% of the population fully vaccinated right now. It's been around that number for several weeks now.
This show is sponsored by Written Off, a podcast from Lemonada Media and Black Bar Mitzvah. It's easy for the world to write out the artistic voices of those who have been locked up. This is the show that aims to fix that. Hosted by Walter Thompson Hernandez, Written Off shines a light on young writers who found their voice inside the U.S. prison system. Each episode features notable creatives like John Legend, Issa Rae, Jay Ellis, Keke Palmer, and Julio Torres, and many more reading their work. Listen to Written Off now, wherever you get your podcasts.
It's summer, which means that millions of people are on the roads, heading to and from vacation. Seeing that check engine light come on can cause major anxiety. It's never a good feeling, especially if your car's no longer covered under a warranty. And if your car is out of warranty, that light can signal expensive car repairs. This is where CarShield comes in. CarShield picks up where your warranty left off, offering vehicle service plans that can cover expensive repairs like your engine, transmission, and AC, which could save you thousands of dollars. Here's how it works. When your car needs repairs, use your favorite mechanic or dealership, and CarShield pays them directly. That's it. It's not just a protection plan, it's peace of mind. Get a free quote by calling 800-416-6522 or visit carshield.com. That's 800-416-6522 or carshield.com to get your free quote.
While countries around the world are surpassing us, we had a head start compared to much of the world. We had a lot of that vaccine available. What happened? You see Canada, the UK, Spain, France, Germany now ahead of the U.S.
Well, I just got back from Tokyo and I had a chance to talk to lots of people from different countries about their vaccine programs. I will say it's tough to sort of paint it with one brush, to treat vaccine hesitancy or whatever as a monolithic issue, because there's, different reasons for different people. But overall, I think what happened in this country compared to other countries is that it just became so political. Obviously you can't vaccinate those 12 and under. There are people who may have legitimate reasons for not getting vaccinated. There may be people who have sort of process reasons. They can't get time off work, or they're afraid that they can't get the days in case they have they don't feel well after the vaccine. I've heard all of these different sorts of things, but mostly I think what keeps us under 50% still is politics.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Dr. Sanjay Gupta and Dr. Paul Offit, guys, thank you very, very much. The story seems to be getting worse. Just ahead, a critical test vote on infrastructure after a new agreement that potentially could finally move one of the president's priorities forward. You're looking at live pictures coming in from the Senate floor. We'll have live coverage of this key infrastructure procedural vote that's coming up. We'll also get special insight into the next phase of the January 6th Special Committee investigation. I'll speak with two key panel members, Democrat Adam Schiff and Republican Adam Kinzinger. They're both standing by live. Stay with us. You're in The Situation. You're looking at live pictures from the U.S. Senate floor. We're standing by for a critical test vote on a new bipartisan infrastructure deal. This after Senate negotiators finally reached an agreement with the Biden administration on some major issues. Our congressional correspondent Ryan Nobles is joining us right now. So, Ryan, what's in this Senate deal? Will it actually stick?
Well, we are pretty confident that it's going to make it through this first stage, this procedural vote. In fact, there was a key supporter that just came out announcing his support in the last few minutes, and that's the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell. That's a signal that there will be more than the 10 Republican votes necessary to get through this procedural phase. And this is what is in this infrastructure bill that has been so hotly debated over the past couple of months here on Capitol Hill. It allows for $110 billion in roads, bridges, and major major projects. $66 billion for passenger and freight rail, $65 billion in high-speed internet, $55 billion in clean drinking water, and $39 billion in public transit. And this was something that both Republicans and Democrats hammered out through hours and hours of negotiations, but it is only the first step in what is likely going to be a very long process. That's because in addition to this $1 trillion in spending that the Senate has proposed, it also has to pass the House, and it also has to come at the same time as that much broader $3.5 trillion budget plan that's going to be passed through reconciliation, which means only Democratic votes. And right now, on the House side, progressive Democrats and even the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi have said that they're not passing this bipartisan bill until they have assurances that the reconciliation package is going to pass as well. And there isn't even 100% assurance yet that there are 50 Democratic votes here in the Senate for that reconciliation bill as well. So that can get a little confusing. There's a lot of numbers being thrown out. The long and short of this is just the beginning of a very long process. Democrats seem very committed to getting both of these bills passed, but there's a long way to go before this ends up on President Biden's desk. Today, a big step toward that process.
You're absolutely right, Ryan. This is just really the beginning of this process. Let's see what happens. Ryan, thank you very, very much. Let's discuss this and more. Congressman Adam Schiff is joining us. He's a key member of the Select Committee on the January 6th insurrection. He's also the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. I want to discuss all of this, but let's talk about this infrastructure proposal. Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had a truly scathing response to this bipartisan Senate deal. She says this, and I'm quoting her now: "Good luck tanking your own party's investment on childcare, climate action, and infrastructure while you're presuming you'll survive a 3-vote House margin, especially after choosing to exclude members of color from negotiations and calling that a bipartisan accomplishment." So, Congressman, how does this pass the House? What's the prospect, assuming it passes the Senate?
Well, I think you pointed out correctly, this is really the first step. And look, I think it's positive. We've got people coming together in the Senate to try to reach agreement on anything these days. And we dramatically need investment in infrastructure in this country. And after 4 years of infrastructure week with no infrastructure, this is positive movement. At the same time, I think it's absolutely correct that this package alone is not going to pass the House. It's going to have to pass in conjunction with a large reconciliation bill that includes human infrastructure that invests in our people. I think the Speaker has made that abundantly clear. So, look, I think it's positive momentum, but no one should be under an illusion that this package is going to pass as a standalone measure without more, because there's so much more we need to do for the country.
On that $3.5 trillion so-called reconciliation budget deal, it's not even clear if there are 50 Democrats in the Senate, though, Congressman, to approve it. So it's by no means even that's not a done deal.
Well, that's right. First there'll be, I guess, a test vote in the Senate, and we'll see how the votes line up at this earlier stage. But this is part of a long-term project, and it's going to be a real test of kind of legislative skill and strategy to figure out how we get to the end zone with this. We all want to do a major infrastructure package. The country desperately needs it. And we need to make this major investment in our people. So hopefully we will get there, and this will be marked as the first step in that. But there's still a long road ahead of us.
Yes. All right, let's turn to the January 6th investigation, Congressman. I want you to watch and listen to what Republican member Liz Cheney says as far as the next steps are concerned. Listen to this.
We've got to make sure that we get to every piece of information that matters. And I think the Speaker has been very clear that, and the Chairman, that we're going to issue subpoenas quickly, that we're going to enforce those subpoenas.
So how quickly, Congressman, will those subpoenas be issued, and who do you need to hear from?
Well, I think you could see subpoenas go out very soon, and those subpoenas will most likely be for documents. It's most useful in investigation to get a hold of the documents first. That way, a lot of the questions you want to ask the witnesses, and it may direct you to the right witnesses. But I think what we're going to do now is we're going to scope out the investigation. We're going to essentially draw up what the chronology is in terms of what information we go after first. We will look at scheduling another hearing, perhaps as early as next month. And as Liz Cheney said, we're going to follow the evidence wherever it leads. We're not going to be at all hesitant to issue subpoenas or to compel production with those subpoenas, whether that is for documents or testimony.
We have to learn exactly what happened, how it happened, why it happened in order to make sure it never, ever happens again. I know you got to go vote. We heard the bells go off. Congressman Schiff will continue this conversation down the road. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, he's getting ready. There he is. He's going to join us for his first one-on-one interview since the January 6th committee officially launched its investigation. We got lots of questions about what happened yesterday, his emotional questioning of these police officers, where the panel goes from here. Stand by. We'll be right back. You're looking at live pictures of the U.S. Senate floor. A key test vote on that bipartisan infrastructure deal is set to begin at any moment. We'll have coverage, of course. Also tonight, police officers who battled rioters at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th say they feel abandoned by their national union, the Fraternal Order of Police. Our security correspondent, Josh Campbell, is joining us right now. Josh, the national union is failing to come forward and support these police officers who risked their lives on January 6th?
That's what we're hearing from so many of these officers, including 3 of them that testified before the House Select Committee. And there's a question about whether politics are at play here, perhaps whether these unions are afraid to alienate some of their members who might be Trump supporters. Nevertheless, what we're hearing from these officers is that they want this organization to rise above politics. The main thing that they are seeking is a public denunciation of those who are trying to play down the severity of that January 6th insurrection. Traumatized by the horrific experience of January 6th, those who are on the front lines want more support from the nation's largest police union, which represents over 350,000 officers nationwide.
After January 6th, neither myself nor any other officer that I spoke to that experienced that day ever had any outreach from the National Fraternal Order of Police. Zero.
Officer Michael Fanone says he decided to contact the Fraternal Order of Police 6 months after the insurrection.
I'll be honest with you, I wasn't particularly impressed with that conversation.
Fanone tells CNN he asked the police union to publicly denounce those who have lied about the severity of the January 6th attack.
Some that I found specifically offensive were the former president's remarks that it was a love fest between law enforcement and the insurrectionists.
There was also a love fest between the police, the Capitol Police, and the people that walked down to the Capitol.
But while the nation's largest police union has shied away from publicly condemning Republicans who have downplayed the attack on officers at the Capitol, the organization has in the past been willing to condemn some progressives who have called for significant policing reform.
I don't think anyone should be surprised that in cities that are the loudest of trying to defund police and trying to eliminate their police departments are the ones that are having the highest crime and struggling with coming back.
An attorney for 2 of the officers who testified this week, Officers Harry Dunn and Aquilino Gonell, echoed Fanone's sentiments, blasting the FOP in a statement for not adequately supporting the officers involved in the insurrection, adding there should be nothing to debate on these points. You either stand with the officers or you stand with the terrorists. The organization did issue a statement on January 6, praising officers and condemning the lawlessness. In a new statement Tuesday, the FOP again reiterated its support for the officers who fought back against the Capitol rioters, adding, "We will be with them as they grieve and recover, however long that may take." Other requests Fanone said he made to the FOP president included denouncing Republicans who voted against giving Capitol Police officers medals for their heroism on January 6, and those he believes mischaracterized the shooting of one of the insurrectionists.
Finally, I asked him to publicly denounce any active duty or retired law enforcement officer that participated in an insurrection at the Capitol. I've received no commitment as to any of those things. None whatsoever.
The officers have gotten support from newly appointed Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger, who sat down with CNN on his first day on the job.
I know what the men and women of this agency went through. I know the challenges that they faced. I also know the courage that they displayed that day, and it was a horrific time. We're going to work hand in glove with the Department of Justice to make sure that these folks are held accountable.
Now, Wolf, the president of the Fraternal Order of Police, was on CNN a short time ago speaking with our colleague Jake Tapper. He said that as far as Officer Fanone, he has reached out to try to offer resources and try to facilitate communication with the local police union. But what we're hearing from Fanone and other officers is that is not enough. They're not looking for resources to help them cope. They have those. What they want is this juggernaut of an organization to put its foot down and set the record straight about what these officers endured on January 6th.
Would be important indeed. All right, thanks very much, Josh, for that report. Josh Kaplan reporting. Let's discuss this and more with Congressman Adam Kinzinger, one of two Republicans who served on the January 6th Select Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. I know you've gotten to know these police officers well. How hard is it to hear that they feel that their police union has, for all practical purposes, seemed to have abandoned them?
Yeah, it's difficult. This is, actually when I saw you reporting this morning on CNN about it, it was kind of news to me. I mean, I've gotten to know Officer Fanone quite well, and I can tell you that these officers feel abandoned on a lot of different levels, as was evident in the hearing yesterday. But, to hear now that their police union seems to be shying away. Look, police union was completely appropriate in condemning, those that wanted to defund the police or whatever, but they need to be consistent. Defend your officers. Resources are great. I think they have the resources they need right now. It's being provided. But more importantly, we need that moral authority, the FOP, to come in and say, look, you can't attack officers, and you also, as leaders, should not deny the fact that they were attacked.
Yeah, that would be really significant. The Republican Party, and you're a Republican, you're a conservative Republican, have been for a long, long time. The Republican Party has always projected itself as the law and order, pro-law enforcement policy. Can your GOP colleagues still make that claim while hanging these police officers, at least many of them, out to dry?
Well, I can. For the party at large, it's, I guess that's a political question that people have to decide, and a party has to decide. I will say this, if again, it's one thing to argue some of the nuances, but then to not condemn members, Republican members of Congress particularly, that obfuscate or deny or distract or deflect from what actually happened and pretend like it was, to quote the former president, hugs and kisses, to quote a member of Congress, nothing but a tourist visit. That's going to be a tougher case to make. And I think, every Republican needs to look kind of deep into their soul and say, okay, maybe you're scared of taking some people off, but this has long-term implications, and not just political implications, human implications, and frankly, implications for self-governance, which is why I'm so passionate about this.
Yeah, as you should be, obviously. Your select committee, the January 6th Select Committee, heard very powerful testimony yesterday from these four police officers who fought to protect the Capitol. They risked their lives. They were badly injured in the process, and I know this affected you personally as well. I'm going to play this clip for our viewers who missed it. Watch this.
You guys may, individually feel a little broken. You guys all talk about the effects you have to deal with, and, you talk about the impact of that day. But you guys won. You guys helped. Democracies are not defined by our bad days. We're defined by how we come back from bad days.
These personal accounts, obviously, from these police officers clearly had an impact on you, had an impact on me. I think everyone who was watching and hearing what they had to say, but it was really obnoxious and disgusting. One personality on Fox actually mocked you, calling those tears of yours a performance. How do you respond to that?
Well, that personality on that television show, I don't think has ever served in uniform a day in his life. I would argue that, that is a very cold-hearted thing, or it's just simply driven on, expanding your cold-hearted personality for ratings. I think, look, the reason that hit me so strongly, I was sitting there getting ready to ask my questions, and I realized, like, you know, it's important for people to see the humanity of these officers, but, you know, the brokenness individually. I've got to know Michael Fanone, as I mentioned, very well. It is important for them to hear and be remembered that they actually did win that day. It took a tragic human toll. I mean,
as well during those hearings. Those police officers were very emotional. It was such a powerful moment. Let's talk about where we all go from here. Your select committee moving forward with subpoenas. We have a good sense of who spoke to the former president.
Hard to find fucking parking today. Very hard. Come on, Subaru. Pedal on the right. Thank you. I think I might just park in the back. Being completely honest here, I don't think I'm going to find parking in the front. I don't see much parking in the back. Wow, that was a big concert, I guess. Fuck, this should be fun. Oh, there was a space. Rip. Got a space here. One space left. And we're gonna take it. If I can get there. Excuse me. Fuck you. In my space. Go fuck yourself. Perfect.
because we are going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to